Welcome one and all. Welcome to Office Hours. Today is Office Hours episode number 37. Yeah, the weeks are just flying by. Thank you so much for coming. Let's talk about game mastering, shall we? So Office Hours is the weekly call-in game master advice show. And if you have been watching the past 36 weeks, you will already know this. But if you haven't, baby, this one's for you. You can get involved in Office Hours by going to my website, www.adam-koval.com, filling out that form, recording your voice, which I will later listen to and process. Then I will answer your question. And that's what it's all about. Today, we've got a bit of a grab bag of stuff. A friend of mine submitted a question, which is always really nice. Someone I've been in the same gamosphere with for a long time. That's always really cool to see. And yeah, and let's get into it. Let's not preamble. Let's answer questions. That's what you're here for. That's what I'm here for. Let's do this thing. Yeah? All right. Our first question comes to us from Chris.
Hello Adam, Chris here, and I have a question. In episode 22, you briefly talked about what you call cascading distractions. In my group, these pop up each game from time to time, through phones or jokes, as described by you. I personally have 3 options which all suck. First, tell my people to quit the off-topic. This is pretty mean and somewhat lame as a person. Second, be smug. Yeah, let's talk about off-topic instead. That's way more interesting than D&D. That sucks because it's smug. Third, don't intervene. That's cool, but waste about 15 minutes to half an hour of time, which is rare for my group. How do you resolve these? Thanks in advance.
Cascading distractions. Okay, so let's clear up in case you didn't watch episode 22. You haven't heard me talk about cascading distractions before. What Chris is referring to is, and maybe you'll recognize this from your own table, and we'll talk about why it's a problem. But what I was referring to when I talked about cascading distractions is what happens when someone does something disruptive at the table, right? A person gets a text message, or they pop open their 3DS, or they crack another Monty Python joke, or it can be more subtle. It can be making a reference to something mid-scene and breaking the tension. It can be engaging the group in a thing that isn't, the game that you're playing. And what starts this cycle is going to come from something different depending on your group, right? Every group and game has its own thresholds for stuff. Sometimes a pithy joke is part of the banter of a game. Not every out-of-character thing is going to start a distraction cascade. But sometimes, with some groups, this can start a chain of references or distractions that can lead to the entire scene coming to a terrible grinding halt, right? Since my groups, personally, tend to have an audience, and we are there to focus on the thing at hand, this doesn't happen too much for me. And sometimes if you're lucky, or if your group is capable of bouncing back, you can have a single distraction and move past it. It can be a minor speed bump. Someone is like, you shall not pass. Haha, yes, we've all seen Lord of the Rings. Bump, moving on. But I'm gonna assume, since you're asking about this, it's a big enough problem that, like you said, if you leave it unchecked, these things can take 15 to 30 minutes out of your game. And that is a lot of time. Like, not everybody plays, 6-hour sessions, but if you're losing a half an hour per session to jokes, that's what, like an eighth of an average session. So, not nothing. And I think you can preempt this a little bit. We'll get into talking about whether it's your responsibility or not. Spoilers, it's not. But I think you can preempt this by doing a swan song, right? So there's a reason why we do the warm-up talk at the beginning of every episode of Roleplay. And that's because we want to get out some of that stuff, get out some of that energy. We're warming up our voices, we're warming up our chemistry together, right? We're getting that banter going so we can charge up our batteries for the session to come. It's not nothing. We don't do that just for, the audience's sake. But it's also to diffuse some of that kind of, I haven't seen these people in a week, I'm really excited about my life or about them. And that's why we prompt people to be like, what have you been up to? How was this? You want to talk about Dota? Rock and roll. This is the half hour of the session where you get to do that. It's not losing that stuff. It's incorporating it into your warm up. Now you can do that in advance, and I would definitely suggest it. And if you still want your 4 hours, start at 3:30 instead of 4. Right? Start at 6:30 instead of 7. Pick a time you're going to start your session. Say everybody start showing up at 6:30. We're playing at 7, but please be there for hanging out, warming up, and getting snacks in the kitchen, and shooting the shit, and complaining about our significant others, and telling us about the dumb thing that happened in the cafeteria at school today. We want to warm up to being able to role play, and you can't jump into the serious stuff right away. So that will help. That will help diffuse that. Now, in game, because you asked specifically about addressing this stuff, in game, I'm going to assume that since you're the one asking me and not someone else in your group, you're the one who's most interested in avoiding these cascading distractions. It's not player specific behavior, right? I've done this before. Watch any show I'm on. I'm right there making the Nickel Bachman jokes alongside the group. And sometimes that kind of reinforcement is a part of the game. Sometimes having shared jokes or having shared responses to things is part of what reaffirms and connects you as players, right? It's a meta level throwback. We can include, and we've talked about reincorporation, we can include in narrative reincorporation, right? If you say, I'm from the planet Bumpkin, and later you're like, this guy's from Planet Bumpkin, I was listening to you when you said that, you can do a meta social level reinforcement thing where if someone makes a joke, it might become part of the game to make little jokes about it later. And that's a thing. That's fair and part of your game, and if it's not disruptive, don't try to fix it. However, just to point out, we're going to assume this is a problem for you, for your group, and you particularly. I want to reaffirm that this is not the responsibility of the game master to manage. Kudos for you for stepping up to the plate here, but you are not their mom. You are not their dad. You are not their principal. You're not their parole officer. You're not the person responsible for maintaining the tone and pace of the game all by yourself. This is not your job. If you're playing a game and the rules say it's your job, please ignore me. But for the most part, no game is going to say the GM's job is to keep shit serious and real, right? It's just not your thing. So I'm addressing this not to you as the game master because you have to do this. I'm addressing you as Chris for asking. Okay? So just so we get that clear, people watching at home, this is not Chris's job. Chris is volunteering to do this because Chris cares about it personally. So, as you said, there are kind of a few approaches, three main ones, right? You can ask politely for the players to stop. You can not ask politely for the players to stop, or you can be a big shitty baby about it. Now, I think you might have missed an option. I know that Luke Crane would suggest you've missed an option. This is a cruel maneuver that Luke has pulled in games that I have played with him, and apparently comes from his large Kickstarter employee games of D&D. Yes, at Kickstarter, they hang out and play Dungeons and Dragons together. I know, the internet. So in a big game like D&D, a cascading joke, a distraction that moves around the group can take a very long time to peter out. That energy can take some time to dissipate. And what Luke told me that he does is when someone makes a joke or a reference, he ignores it the first time, right? But if somebody else picks it up, then he invites the entire group to continue. And I use invite gently here until everybody has made their favorite flying circus reference, or everyone has made a joke about jizz or Star Wars or whatever is the joke of the moment. Until everyone has done that, the game does not continue. Once the cascade starts, it is forced to play out. So what Luke does there is he stops and says, Okay, you obviously don't want to play the game right now. You all want to make Monty Python jokes. Go ahead. No, just that's fine. Tell me. Say something about a rabbit. Yeah. Use your terrible Scottish accent. Go for it. No, but you don't, because that's what we were doing. Now we've stopped playing D&D. Right now, my understanding is that this shitty approach, to be honest, it's like a little mean and very punitive. But it works with some groups, and it'll stick the first time if you do it. But I warn you, it's a gamble, because your players might be like, well, fine, these are for you. Game's over. We're talking about Monty Python now. In fact, fuck it. Let's go get shawarma and watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Right? Like, it is a gamble. I would say that as far as actual solutions to your problem go, we're going to need to assess the question a little more deeply. We're not all the iron fist of Luke Crane, so we may need our other approaches. You know me, I'm a little more of a softie on this stuff. So usually when players goof off, it's for one of a few reasons, right? Sometimes players are doing this because they're bored. Like, legit, they're bored. They're looking for something entertaining to do. This isn't your fault. I'm not implying you're a bad GM. Even if your players are bored, you're not a bad GM. I mean, you might be a bad GM, but it's not anyway, whatever. So your players are goofing off maybe because they're bored, because they really wanted to play Mouse Guard, and instead you're playing Paranoia. And maybe they're surly about that. And they're performing their boredness as a protest for the fact that they have to play Mouse Guard or have to play Paranoia. If they're playing Persona, the tip, you have a much bigger problem. They might be bored because the campaign has taken a turn that they don't like, and they're not as in the spotlight. They may be having a hard time being grown-ups and being respectful of the space of the other players. So boredom is something that happens. Sometimes there's a legitimate distraction, right? Sometimes you really want to be playing D&D. You want to be focused on Dungeons & Dragons, but like, you have a friend who's going through a crisis at home and they're texting you about it and they need your support. Maybe your job requires that you pay attention to something else sometimes. There might be a reason that you're distracted, and that's a thing. That might be a reason. Sometimes this behavior comes from a place of nervousness, right? Sometimes players who are in campaigns that don't match their own general style, they can act out. Maybe they feel pressure to be serious, or they feel pressure to perform in a space that they're not comfortable, and they're trying to deflate the pressure in the room. They're trying to feel like, because we crack jokes when we feel nervous. So this might be a thing too. Honestly, and occasionally, this kind of thing can be part of a mental health issue, right? You might have players that have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That's a thing that can occur. Some people respond to all sorts of health issues, medication, mental health stuff with hyperactivity, with manicness, and that is also a thing too. And listen, you know your players better than I do, and I trust you to treat them like human beings with respect and know what is causing this, or at least make an effort to learn what's causing this, because there's lots of reasons. It's not just they're being shitty, right? But what I'm hearing here, and what I think is a problem in many groups that this results from, is a failure to align your priorities. For example, in Nebula Jazz, there's a lot of goofing around. There's a lot of like making silly jokes and winking at the camera and lampooning, and that's by design. We have aligned our priorities. Jesse and Dodger and Sam and Pocket and I all know this is a campaign in which we are more than able to make jokes for the sake of the audience player experience, right? I wouldn't let that fucking shit fly if we were playing Burning Wheel, right? But in Nebula Jazz, that's okay. We've aligned our priorities. And I would like to believe that most groups, if not all groups, fundamentally act the way they want to act. right? They're goofing off, not because they're shitty players and you're playing correctly and they're not. They're goofing off because that's what they want to do. I know, it can be a hard revelation, but that's what they want to do, right? This is similar, trying to get this shit in alignment is similar to setting and understanding the tone and tenor of a campaign, right? If your players all continue to play characters whose main jam is murder at the drop of the hat, they want to play a game about being murderers, and they want to murder people at the drop of a hat, and that's the kind of thing that they want to play. That's what they want. So consider that maybe you're the only one at the table who feels like the game is suffering from this cascading chain of bullshit, right? If all your players want to play that way, there might not be anything you can do about this problem, because the problem might be you. Your players, and this is why we talk to our players, your players might be sitting around after the session saying, "Oh, why was Chris, who put the stick up Chris's butt? Like, why are they being like this? Chris, come on. We're just hanging out for fun." I'm not saying that's 100% the thing, but this can happen. This can totally happen, and if that's the case, it's okay. You just need to decide. It falls on you that if this is the case, you might enjoy playing with a different group whose style is less banter and jokes and more attachment to immersive focused play. This might just be a play style that's wrong, and in that case, you need to decide. It's a call you need to make. You've got the option to either leave or stick around and play and be silly and joke about the holy hand grenade to your heart's desire, right? Because if you can't do that, it's time to go. Now, there is a chance you're not the only one, or that the group doesn't realize these cascades are occurring, or that other people in the group actually want to play, but they're having a hard time focusing, in which case you've got allies. So let's be real. Everyone in your group should be an ally. Right? In this regard, everyone in your group should already be together, not because distraction is inherently wrong in gameplay, but because we should be playing with people who want the same things that we do. So talk to your players about this, and do not do this from a position of authority. Don't do it in the middle of the game. This is like taking a minute. So you have an argument about something stupid with, so you have a domestic partner. So you live with someone, and one of you is mad that the other one isn't doing the dishes enough. You don't have that argument when there's a sink full of dishes. You don't have that fight in the moment, right? Don't bring this up right after a cascade of jokes. Bring this up during post-game pizza time or pre-game, drive to the venue. Bring it up in a calmer, non-engaged social environment, and don't do so from a position of authority. Do so from a position of hopeful expectation that the persons you are playing with will hear you. They will recognize your desires and take seriously your hopes to play the game a certain way. Absolutely do not say, "I'm the GM, you cut this shit out, stop behaving badly." Instead, say, "I'm finding that the distractions in this game are kind of making it less fun for me. Can we work on reducing them in play? How does everybody else feel? Are y'all feeling distracted when we play? Where's that coming from?" Be clear about your needs and what you're hoping for, and give your players space to express their needs and talk about them too. Ask them questions. Ask questions. It's like the most important thing that any human being can do in interacting with any other human being, period. Seriously, it's a huge fucking deal. Ask them what makes the game fun for them. Learn why the issue is coming up. Find out if the problem is real or not. I think we learn to hate disengagement. We learn to hate distraction because I think as GMs, we're expected to be the most serious and the most dedicated ones at the table. We're expected to be responsible for making the game good, and goodness in a game, not moral goodness, but quality of a game, is defined more often than not by how feelsy it was, how intense it was, how engaging it was. And we see other people's distracting behavior as running counter to that. They are fucking up our job. This would be as bad as interrupting someone or taking away their character sheet mid-play. Like, we need their attention to feel like we're doing our job. So change what you feel like your job is. you are not parenting your group. You're not policing your group. You're there to perform your role, and they're there to support you, just like you're there to support them. Listen to your group, ask them what their deal is, and then all of you together as a social unit shift your behavior. It's a lot harder than just being like, stop fucking doing that. Good luck. I hope you get what you need, and you can have a good time doing it. I believe in you.
Hey Adam, this is Judd, and I have a question about the way that you play your NPCs with depth. I noticed it in Swan Song with a lot of NPCs, but I'm thinking particularly of Randy, who is kind of a tiny minor NPC who was killed in one of the first weeks of play because the player characters are amoral murder hobos on the Swan Song. And I'm thinking about Court of Swords. We had Twee, and we had Plum, who you kind of fleshed out. You fleshed out Plum a bit by showing his pregnant wife waiting to have her fortune told. And I was just wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, about how you use the technique of fleshing out NPCs without overshadowing the PCs, which I feel like is a key part. You do it in a way that gives depth to the world, but doesn't take away the player, anything from the player characters. Matter of fact, it gives them more to dig into, and I thought it was really interesting. So if you feel like there's more to be talked about there, please I'd love to hear you expound on that technique a little bit. Thank you very much. Looking forward to watching you GM more and hearing your shows. Thanks.
So first of all, hi Judd. How you doing? So Judd, dear Judd here. Judd's a friend of mine from back in the day, and is a great fan, like I am, of the Burning Wheel. Judd runs a blog called the Githyanki Diaspora, and I think that Judd might be the first person I ever heard like really focus on and hammer home the idea that when we want to solve problems in our groups, we should talk to our players. Judd is a revolutionary. I know. Judd gets the credit for this one. So thank you, Judd, for your question. And thank you so much for noticing all the hard work I put into my NPCs, and also for being so complimentary. So if you want to get a question on office hours, here's how you do it. Be somebody I know, like the same game as me, and then just like say a bunch of nice shit. That's not true. That's not true. I think this is a good question. So let's get into it. So I'm going to be a little immodest. I'm going to be a little immodest here. I hope you can bear with me. I think that I can say, after a few like solid years now of let's say aggressive feedback from a lot of people, and self-reflection, certainly, that my killer skill as a game master is NPCs. I think I'm okay saying that. I think most people will be in agreement that while I may lack some other stuff, I may be working on those other skills, my main jam, non-player characters. I'm pretty good at world building, right? I'm not bad at barfing forth apocalyptica, right? But if you want an NPC that's gonna tug on your heartstrings and make you hate them, or make you question who your character really is, I'm your man. In every campaign I have ever run, the things that I end up being the most proud of are the NPCs and the way that they show off the world to the PCs and to you, the audience, the viewing audience. And I try my hardest to create NPCs that feel like fully developed people and who exist mainly to be foils and mirrors and sounding boards for the PCs, because no matter what campaign I'm running, no matter what the mechanisms or the systems, I think the real stories that people tune in to watch, the real reason people come back to the table every week, are the stories about the player characters. If an NPC exists solely for its own existence, I feel like it's a wasted opportunity. The NPC becomes a set piece or an illustration, and like sometimes that's okay. We don't need to know the deep history of every shopkeep or town guard the players encounter. Sometimes all we need to know is the voice with which they speak, or their prices, or what kind of armor they're wearing. And these sorts of NPCs, in my mind, are more akin to furniture than to characters. And I think that's okay. What I try to do, though, is be prepared for the circumstance thereby the players entering the scene, the circumstance in which the players get attached to an NPC, right? The accidental grabbing of attention of a player, or for that matter, you as an audience, right? Occasionally, a piece of NPC furniture will quickly become someone important or interesting. A chair doesn't matter until a PC sits in it. An NPC doesn't matter until a PC interacts with them. There's a kind of tree falling in the forest thing here. If a NPC has a backstory and we never learn it, did they ever have a backstory at all? Right? If you watch literally, any of the campaigns that I've run, and I think you'll be able to see characters that I expected to be a big deal from the get-go, like as soon as I introduced them, but you'll also be able to pick up on characters that I never expected to be a fan or a PC favorite, right? I think that's sort of the first step for me, is I try to envision every non-player character as, if not a realized person, the potential to be a fully realized person. And to be fair, all right, let's get real for a second. Let's just put the tabletop stuff aside. I treat humans like this too, right? I treat human beings this way. Now, I'm not creating them, but every person that I could potentially interact with, I like to remember that they are a fully realized human being in their own narrative. They have a rich backstory. They have friends and enemies. They have lovers. They have a life that I am not, as PC of my own story, not privy to. Other human beings have a story you don't know. And in the same way, treating a character in a role-playing game with that same kind of fundamental top layer, I don't want to call it respect, but acknowledgement, gives you the opportunity to dig in when you need to, right? Treat them like they could be a person if only the PC interacted with them for just a minute. Assume that every character that the PCs interact with is someone with their own ongoing story that might not be as interesting as the PCs, right? We can't all be player characters in this kind of narrative, but that doesn't even matter. In another game, in another system, they might well be the main character. Sure, the merchant who just arrived in town might only be on screen for a second. We might just be like, I go see the merchant. Cool, he's a merchant. He sells you a thing. Great, we're done. But maybe the merchant just saw the springtime in the Cassini forest, and its fabled beauty convinced him that he wanted to marry his hometown sweetheart after all. And now he's got it in his head to finally say no to his father, who wanted him to carry on the merchant business, and he's going to finally take up painting like he always wanted to. But maybe we'll never see that. Maybe we'll never know. Maybe today is the day he's going to lip off a PC because he's feeling a little bold. Maybe he's going to take a +2 longsword to the face. Maybe he's going to die. Maybe none of that backstory stuff matters. I try to do this with every NPC in my games, just in case. And when I say that, I mean, literally, I just make that shit up on the spot. I think about how I want a character to act and what would cause them to act that way, right? Nobody in my games does anything for no reason or just because I feel like it. I try to justify, because people, this is true about humans, people act the way they do and they say things the way they do and they behave the way that they behave because their life has made them this way. And this is true for me and for you and for every NPC in the whole universe. They're like that for a reason. And I don't mean that you need to sit down and come up with a paragraph of bullshit about every single NPC, because that is way too much work, right? And so what I'll do instead is I'll think of one quick thing. What is this person's deal? I make a quick note about the first thing I come up with, and I'll just roll with it. Honestly, most of the time I can trust myself to improvise something cool, and that the first thing I think of is the best thing. Or at least best enough to just roll with for now. That thing comes from practicing this and from focus. It comes from making NPCs my thing and loving that thing about games as much as I can, whatever game I'm playing. My NPCs are good because I love them, because I love creating them. I love thinking about why they are the way that they are. My NPCs are what give my campaigns life. And I know, and you should remember too, that that's not everybody's jam, right? Like Neil's campaigns. Neil's campaigns thrive on his mastery of the rule set and this sense of a fully fleshed out world that he presents, right? Neil puts all of this effort into creating these encyclopedic universes that, for him, are the source of passion in his role-playing games. And he pairs that with a very fine understanding of a particular rule set, and those two things together are what makes his games good. Steven's campaigns are a painting. They're a vintage wine. They are lush wordplay. They are beautiful descriptions. You can taste the lumpkins. His descriptions are so vivid, right? Trist's campaigns are full of amazing personality. The characters in her games and the way they interact with the PCs and with each other reflect her total inability to take shit from anybody. And it's amazing. I don't think I've laughed as hard as at any D&D show as I have watching Trista GM, right? Her NPCs are hilarious because that's something that she is good at. Everybody has their thing. For me, it's NPC characterization. It's showing off the world by way of these NPCs. And as far as not stepping on the PC's toes, I do two things to avoid that, right? Because yes, you could very easily make a world. I could very easily do this. I could create a world, create all these NPCs and be like, all right, PCs, you're not that important, right? You're second tier to all these cool characters that I've made up. But what I do is present the NPCs only to show things to the PCs and to give us ways to learn about them. That is the only reason an NPC exists in the game. They're there to reflect the PCs and to present an opportunity for us to be a fan of them. We like the NPCs. We want to get to know more about them, but it's secondary to what they can teach us about the player characters, right? Cerulus, the Fabio-esque shirtless lumberjack half-drow, wasn't there just because I wanted to show you a shirtless lumberjack half-drow. I wanted to talk about drow society because I care, because Oleander is a drow, right? That NPC is there for Oleander. It's not for me. It's there to show something about a player character. So, I always keep that in mind. Maurice in Mirror Shades, Maurice didn't fall in love with Bonbon because I thought it'd be funny or because I cared about Maurice. Maurice fell in love with Bonbon because I wanted to see what Bonbon would do with this kind of obnoxious, pushy dude, but also what would provoke breakdown into showing his feelings for Bonbon. I could see that little romance starting to form, and so I introduced Maurice to destabilize it, right? We learned to care about Maurice, but I introduced him for the PCs. Twee, for example, Twee was an asshole to the PCs because she grew up in a rough situation. She saved her brother from a horrible situation. She was a tough kid. She had to be, but that's not why I put her in the game. I put her in the game because I wanted an NPC who would push back when the PCs tried to get their way. I made her a human being because there have to be reasons for people to act that way. I wanted to see the PCs react to a little kid who wouldn't take shit from them. I also wanted to see if they would kill her for lipping off. I wanted to push that. Burning Wheel has taught me to do this. Burning Wheel taught me to always look at the things that the players act certain about and then be like, yeah, but what if, right? Connor Wu died to answer the question, how far would you go to eradicate blue fever, Mr. Sicarian? Sorrowful Plum in Court of Swords, his pride in his village and his noble spirit wasn't about him. It was about whether or not the PCs would care enough to protect him and bring him home safe, The other thing I have to remember is that the NPCs that I create are always in the crosshairs. We never love things so much as when we think we're going to lose them. So I have to remember that I am always one roll away from losing the things in my game that I love the most. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I will continue to say it. Throughout the history of my GMing, players will destroy everything you love. Players will kill the most beautiful things you've ever made, and that's okay. That's their job. Remember what Vincent Baker said. NPCs live in a world of pure fucking terror, and we should encourage that. We should look at them through crosshairs. No matter what setting they're in, this is a universe in which they are not the protagonist. Any moment, everything they love, their entire life could just vanish in flames. So I try to remember that, even if a character has an important backstory or they have this big tragic thing, most of it will just never get told. It's there to help me know how to characterize them, where to push, and what to do when I play them. My NPCs are fleshed out people, not because they deserve to be, or they ought to be, but honestly, because they make them easier for me to play. Excuse me. It makes reactions easier to get from the players. Right? Like, think about the NPCs in my game, all the ones that I've mentioned, and think about the ways in which you feel as a viewer. You felt like they were real people. And the reason for that is that when I get into character, when I take a moment to step into that character, I think constantly in the back of my mind about what their life is like. Why are they like this? I think that it's important to treat these characters as wholly formed entities, because that'll make it easier for you. Being an NPC in my game it's a beautiful tragedy, right? You get just enough backstory so that the audience will love you, and then you probably die. But that doesn't matter so much, because your death meant we learned something about a PC as a result, and well, that's what counts, isn't it? That's what we tell ourselves.
Hello, Adam. This is Purple Prose, and I have a rather specific question to ask, which is, how do you encourage your players to fictionally position themselves and make roles as the narrative flows, as the players in your games mostly seem to? I ask this because my players are very much the sort of people who like being powerful, having mechanically strong characters, and so they approach tasks mostly by brute forcing it with rolls. So, for example, I'll ask for, say, a specific player to roll a knowledge check based on what they said they're doing, and every other player will do the same things just because they can, even, in air quotes, even if their character's skill set or mindset doesn't really factor into that. I mostly want to get out situations where players will roll, like, knowledge engineering 10 times to do one task or whatever else. I'm pretty sure it's just because they played Pathfinder or D&D 3.5 almost exclusively in the past, but I thought I'd just ask for the magic of the internet, so thank you in advance. Huge fan of your work, and I'll see you around the internet, I guess.
When people ask me, hey Adam, what's your favorite position? I say, fictional. So we're going to play a quick lightning round. Are you ready? Are you ready for the lightning round of the definition game before we answer this question? All right, so fictional positioning is the process of describing your character into getting what they want, whether that's a goal, an aspect of the character, or just a bonus going into a situation. It's using your description of the people, places, and things around your character in a game to get shit done. For example, I'm going to leap up onto the table so that the person I'm dueling is below me. I take a swing with my sword. That qualifies me for an advantage die, right? Higher ground. Mechanical positioning is using the shit on your character sheet to get what you want, making a melee attack to kill someone because you have a +1 to hit. Or taking your turn because it's your turn in the initiative order. It's using the rules of the game to engage the game to accomplish things in the fiction. Every role-playing game in the history of role-playing games uses some combination of mechanical and fictional positioning to establish what we call the narrative. The narrative is the ongoing roll of events and occurrences in the game we're playing. Many games reward fictional positioning, at least lightly. I would say most do. In fact, modern games, most do. In Burning Wheel, if you are able to explain why you ought to get an advantage die, generally you are afforded that die. In 5th edition, you can get inspiration from preloading your position with a fictional moment of revelation or exploration. In Fate Accelerated, you're rewarding fictional positioning with control over what approach you use to roll. Do you want to use Forceful? Fictionally position your character using Force. More traditional games tend to reward fictional positioning with things like stunts. For example, Exalted, where you get a bonus based on some fiat system around being entertaining. When the question asker refers to fiction-first play, what they mean is encouraging play behavior that treats the fictional space as the paramount aspect of all role-playing play. All things flow to it, all things flow from it. Fiction-first always answers the question, why is this happening in the narrative, with because the fiction demands it. In some cases, fiction first allows you to bypass things like advancement. I'm thinking about in Apocalypse World. I've taken your gang from you. Now I get the move about leading a gang. Why? Fictionally, I've earned it. Mechanically, I don't have enough advances to get that, but it doesn't matter. Fictionally, I've earned it. In exactly the same way as I'm taking your +1 sword. I now have a +1 to attack and damage. Why? Because I fictionally positioned myself into this sword. Now you're going to fictionally position yourself into this sword. Right? We do this already. And fiction first just means games draw their mechanical stuff from the fiction and feed back into it. Apocalypse World is a great example of a game whose mechanisms are fiction first. Most people hear about fiction first from that game. Blades in the Dark is basically the optimal text for understanding how fictional positioning can affect play. But there are lots of games that operate from varying places in the ficto-mechanical spectrum. Also, it's false to think of these as a binary. You use both of them all the time, constantly. We have to have both to be able to perform things in-game. So what can we do to lean our players' behavior into a more fictive space when we're playing with a group or a system that tends to prefer mechanical resolution? I've said it before, earlier in this office hours, for example. My favorite trick, here we go. My favorite trick, this is a thing, comes from figuratively playing like about 1 billion sessions of Dungeon World. I like to ask questions. So when a player boldly makes a declarative mechanical statement like, I do this thing, you can say to them, player, in what way do you do the thing? Please, describe your character doing the thing. If the player is unwilling or unable to describe the thing, they can't do it. Right? It makes sense, right? Like, I kill him. How? I don't know. You don't kill him. I'm not suitably immersed in this moment to understand how the fiction indicates you would kill him, let alone how the fiction would indicate what mechanism you use to kill him. You can reward fiction-focused behavior with whatever mechanical currency your game allows. Give your players a bonus or advantage or whatever is called for in the game and whatever is mechanically appropriate in the rule set when they describe themselves doing a thing in play that would warrant it. This sounds like really basic shit, right? If the players describe themselves, putting themselves into a situation where they get a bonus, give them the fucking bonus. I mean, in this case, listen to the fiction. Imagine the shared imaginative space. Get your head in the game. Listen to the fiction. Reward that. Do not, for the love of God, do not just reward players for describing shit. Describing shit is their job. Describing shit is their job. Describing shit is their job. Describing shit, that is their job. Describe things. That's how you play role-playing games. It's the bare minimum. If they're not doing that, they're not playing the game. However, Allowing the fiction to affect their likelihood of mechanical success is something you can teach your players. Let's do an example. Are you ready? All right, I'm a player. I'm a player describing things. I hit the orc with stunning blow. All right, cool. That means you get to roll stunning blow. Okay, whatever. You're boring, but it's fine. There's an example. I hit the orc with my stunning blow. Hit, orc, stunning blow. Using this ability to do an action on the orc. You're playing the game. You suck, but you're playing the game. I swing my arms over my head, crying havoc and plunging the sword of my father, which I call Dog of War, into the orc, activating my stunning blow attack. It's much fancier. It's not fictional positioning. It's a little masturbatory, to be honest, and I wouldn't reward it with anything. It's kind of wasting time. But, you know, better. I use my move action to leap up onto the table, screaming bloody murder because I fucking love killing orcs, and I swing my sword using my stunning blow attack. Much better, and probably worth advantage if the orc is like, I don't know, afraid of shouting, or in a position where standing on a table would overcome some defense. Worth a mechanical bonus. Encouraging players to think fictionally for a mechanical reward. The thing here is respecting the needs of the game and treating the fiction like it actually matters. Because if you don't mechanically enforce something, if something has no mechanical impetus in the game, it doesn't fucking matter. It's just fluff. All right, I'm gonna do something I don't want to do. I'm gonna do something, this is hard for me. This is hard, and I want you to acknowledge that I'm about to do something difficult. All right? This is hard for me. I'm gonna say something nice about inspiration. God, I can't believe I'm doing this. All right. I'm going to say something nice about inspiration. So 5th edition, it has a rule called inspiration. I fucking hate it. But what I like about it is that it preloads the fictional shit. I like how, because combat in 5th edition D&D requires focus and attentiveness, and like, honestly, a lot of role-playing just bogs it down. It lets you preload your RP. It gets to bypass the, I'm attacking the orc with my mighty sword of might because in my past, my father was killed by an orc. And as he died, he told me that I should also kill orcs for him. Can I have advantage? It skips all that horse shit and preloads it. It preloads it into, as I set up for camp, I say a prayer to the ancestors of my father and his father and his father, because we are a long line of orc hunters, and this is what I do, right? I have preloaded, so later, when it's time to fuck up some orcs, I've already done all this shit. Mechanically, you've got inspiration because of the thing, right? You've got inspiration because when you were in the town, you admitted that you were cruel to the serving lad because he reminded you of what a meek, shitty baby you were when you were a child. But now, in battle, you're not wasting our time with a lot of, I used to be a stupid baby. You're splitting skulls, you're rolling to hit rolls, because that's what's necessary to make the game work. RP in 5th edition combat slows it the fuck down and really, really makes it a lot harder to enjoy. But if you've done this already during the downtime, if you've preloaded your role-playing, now you don't have to do that shit. So, take the fiction seriously. Use the reward structure of the game and grant bonuses that make sense, but also issue penalties accordingly, and your players should follow along. Use advantage, use disadvantage, hand out advantage dice, increase the obstacle with difficult tasks. Do those things, because your players will notice. They will do these things to get those rewards. Don't be afraid to explain why they're getting these bonuses. And in fact, you probably should tell them, cool, I'm going to give you advantage because you described this thing. Cool, I'm going to give you disadvantage because you're in this bad situation. The only risk here, the only risk here is that you will turn into Jeff. Or that your players will turn into Jeff. And I love Jeff. I love Jeff to death. A group of Jeffs, primo. One Jeff, maybe harder to handle. And what I mean here, I'm talking about my dear friend in Control. he is a fictional positioning lawyer. People like to call him a rules lawyer. He's not. He's a fictional positioning lawyer. He loves fictional positioning. He likes knowing exactly what is happening in a situation, knows exactly why he's getting bonuses, and he likes to lawyer for bonuses. He likes to say, I want advantage because of this thing. And 5e actually helps because once you get advantage, that's all you can get. You can't get a +1, you can't get a +10, you get advantage. And it's cool. That's a cool way to play. That's a way to get advantage on rolls. You want to win, do it. A player like Jeff is much more amenable to disadvantage as well. To be like, well, you're standing in 3 inches of machine lubricant, so you have disadvantage. You're slipping all over the place. It's fine. That's fine. That's a valid way to play. But if your players aren't used to it or don't know how to do so respectfully, like Jeff does, Jeff is very respectful. If I say no, Jeff is like, cool, okay, that's fine. That makes sense. Your players will learn. Just expect that there might be players where they fictionally push for this stuff. And that's a thing. Just be ready for that. As far as your other problem, the consistent rolling over and over problem, that like, oh, he's making a perception check, I'm making a perception check, let's all fucking make perception checks. You can set the stakes a little harder before you go into the roll. I mean, D&D doesn't say anything about this, and some games technically allow for an infinite number of rolls in any situation, but fuck that. Your characters are under pressure, right? Something's happening to them, like right fucking now. Oh, it's not? There's no pressure in this situation? Well, don't make them roll. Just tell them what they want to know. Especially if it's bullshit interrogative stuff like, who's the prince of this area? Or what's that heraldry mean again? Because it means you get to wank off for 30 seconds with the golden ham sigil of Prince Fuckpants. And we all need a chance to yammer on about our NPCs or the world, right? The players are giving you an invitation to just wank around. Take it. Take that invitation. If they are under pressure, tell them. Say so. Listen, you've only got enough time for everyone to do one thing. What is it? And if they want to use that time to scour their memory for the bloodline of royal fuckpants, then great, let them. And then, bam, hit them with the thing, right? The other thing you can do is drift your rules and go with this whole, I don't know, every roll means something. So if they fail, don't just say, okay, you wasted 30 seconds of in-game time with everybody rolling perception or knowledge checks, but let's move on. Say, oh, you failed? Well, here's what happens. It's technically a rules drift. You're technically hacking your game. Because if you're not, you don't have this problem, right? If you're playing Burning Wheel, this is a non-issue for you. If you're playing Torchbearer, it's especially a non-issue. There's so much pressure in that game. But it's technically a rules drift, and as so, you need to get your players on board. Tell them why you want to do this. Tell them why you think it'll add spice to your game and why you're trying to introduce it to get out of this bland roll-off. I hate it. You hate it. Everybody hates this kind of behavior. Players want to win, though. And 4 chances to win is better than 1. In D&D, you can make something a group action, so like half the people have to succeed, but that isn't as good for things like perception or knowledge checks, where the higher number you get, the more information you get. It's not good. It's not good. So what you want to do is put the pressure on. If there's no pressure, generally give them what they want. If they insist on all rolling, treat failure like it matters. When someone fails a roll, punish them. Don't introduce this in combat because failure in combat is punishment enough. But out of combat, knowledge checks, bullshit diplomacy rolls, all that stuff, punish. And I don't mean punish in a vindictive, shitty way. I mean punish by making the game more interesting when they fail. If you fail, something will happen, but you will not be in control of that thing. Play games that treat failure like a momentum engine, not like a minor stumbling block that you can just try to climb over again. Role-playing games are not an obstacle course. You do not have an infinite number of tries to get over that wall. Your players need to learn that they cannot private pile their way through life. And by talking to them as people, telling them these are the things that we are going to do in our game. This is how pressure works in the game. Getting them on board, getting their like firm consent, being like, yes, that sounds awesome. I like pressure. I like complicated situations. I'm not just here to win. I'm here to win in an interesting way. I want to beat you in a way that's fun. Get them on board. You'll have a much more rewarding situation than you would if you were just like, whatever. Try different games, right? Like this group and your desires might not align when it comes to Pathfinder or 3.5. Try Dungeon World, try Burning Wheel, try Apocalypse World, try Torchbearer, try Mouse Guard, try Fate, try, like, there's a lot of games. Try something different, but look when you're picking your game, look at how it handles these exact kinds of things, right? That's my advice. I think that these tricks can help move your game in the direction that it sounds like you want it to go, but your groups have to want that as well. Because if your group doesn't want it, then what the fuck are you doing? This has been episode 37 of Office Hours. I'm Adam Coble. You're you. Thanks for coming. We do Office Hours every week. Live, twitch.tv/Adam Coble, which if you're watching live, you're like, of course, Adam, I know. I'm here watching live. 10 a.m. Tuesdays, Pacific time. You can catch it on YouTube later in the week, usually Thursdays at 3 p.m. Pacific time. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're like, yeah, dude, I know. I'm watching it on YouTube. If you want to get involved, you can go to www.adam-coble.com, click that Office Hours link, fill out that form, record for me your lovely voice. I do so love hearing you. And I will answer your question right here on Office Hours. Maybe even on the next episode of Office Hours. We'll see you then.